You're listening to the Home Improvement Report podcast, episode number 43. Today, August 28th, 2020. My guest is Alex Guthrie. I was able to get some time with him and record a great conversation. We talk about observations of the pandemic, 169 days or 5 months and 16 days after it all began in March of this year. I'm your host, Gary Neidert. Welcome to today's episode where I talk with my good friend Alex about what he has experienced since we last talked, observations of what other businesses are doing during the COVID crisis, and much more. He's been on the Home Improvement Report before, and I always enjoy his point of view along with what he has to say about current events. So let's just get right on into the interview. I know you're going to enjoy my conversation with Alex. Alex, welcome to the Home Improvement Report.
Hey, it's fantastic, Gary. Fantastic to see you. And of course, we're doing this Zoom so we can see each other, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's always great to talk to you. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How about you? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm staying very busy in the production end of the business. You know, of course, I have a couple of companies and actually 3 now, but you got to diversify.
Yeah, the media mogul.
The construction, the remodeling industry's been hammered pretty bad with the pandemic, and I know that a lot of it's coming back, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that are busy.
Yeah.
But there's also lots of competition, and the shoppers are getting a little more challenging.
Right. I remember we talked about that, and you were telling me about how many bids these people are wanting to get, and the expectation seems to be kind of unreasonable to me. I don't know.
Well, it seems like in the past I've dealt with this as well. When you get into a market situation, the same thing in the home selling. Anything you're selling, there's a buyer's market and a seller's market, and I think that the homeowners see this as a buyer's market for them, and so they're shopping hard, and they're pushing you hard for lower pricing, and there's a lot of challenges right now in the construction industry from the standpoint of cost of materials, which has gone up just in the last quarter 30%, and in year over year I think it's up over 100%.
Oh gosh!
In some materials, and so labor, of course, is it stays fairly steady on labor. People don't want to price themselves out of work, but the overall raw materials is really, putting a big gut punch into the industry right now, particularly in the new home building. Now, locally in our area, in the North Texas area, it's super strong. I mean, they can't keep up. I think a lot of that has to do with relocations that have been ongoing and will continue for a couple more years, I'm sure. We have a huge influx of people. We're predicting anticipating by 2030 to have an additional 1 million people moving to North Texas.
Man. That's a lot of people. I several years ago, back in the late 90s, I believe it was, I went to a home builders meeting. It was a lunch, and Ross Perot Jr. was there, and he spoke about what he saw coming up for the Dallas-Fort Worth area and beyond, North Texas. And, someone asked him, do you think this is going to slow down, or when do you think it will slow down? And his words were, no, I don't think it's slowing down until at least 2025 and maybe beyond. And I was shocked at that point, but here we are, 2020. That's 5 years away.
Well, we have a
we're still going.
combination of a desirable area. Of course, North Texas is, climate wise, it gets a little hot in the summer, but it never gets cold in the winter. So if you live somewhere that it does get real cold in the winter, you're going to like it here.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of desirable things. There's a lot of room to grow, or has been a lot of room to grow. That's shrinking rapidly. But it's also you're in a state that has a very, very desirable business climate, very business friendly, and so there's pretty much nowhere you can go in Texas. It's not, people don't like. I mean, it's just a fantastic place to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, to me, the equivalent of California, just in a different way. I love California. As far as the state, the area, the geographics, and everything, it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's like heaven on earth. Texas to me is heaven on earth too, partly because I'm a Texas boy, but it's a beautiful place to be. It's a wonderful place to live. We're very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, there was something you and I had talked about. It was your observation about the airline industry. Whenever it was, probably the last time we spoke or did a podcast. Well, you and I both seen the headlines and seen the news story about American Airlines furloughing or laying off, I thought I heard 40,000 people in August. So
I heard 19,000 by the last quarter or something like that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what I heard was
both.
19,000.
Could be both.
And then I thought someone else had said 40,000. So either way, 20,000, that's a lot of people being laid off in this area. And so talk again about the way that you look at the airline industry and how it affects the overall industry of remodeling.
I look at the overall business industry, and I just stay in touch. I visit the business page and look at the internet, and I stay in touch with companies, not only companies laying people off, which is of course substantial. So if you look at who is your client? You own a small business, you're a remodeler, or you could be a home builder, remodeler, whatever. You're a small business, and so you depend on a certain type of clientele. So let's say you build a house, a $250,000-$300,000 range type house, or even if you're a production builder and that's your kind of dollar value of the homes that you sell, or you're a remodeler and you particularly remodeling where you're in people's houses, and an average remodel project's less than $10,000. They don't consider that. They consider that pretty average, and so that's like a cash deal for most people. I call it credit card money. And you start kind of looking at who's your client base. So if you're up in the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 range where people are borrowing money or they're getting into their savings, you look at where are they getting their money. So they're middle management type people. I call them middle management. So it's the middle management people that actually run this entire industry for the most part. Most people don't do big high dollar jobs. They do jobs that people have to do. They remodel a bathroom for $15,000. They put a new fence up. I had a lady call me yesterday, want me to put some new columns on the front of her house and fix some rotted siding. They're not super expensive jobs. And the people that can afford those, or the people that are paying for those projects, are people that are in that sort of management type of business. So if you live in a city like Dallas that's got tons of big national companies here, that's your client base. It's those mid-level $150,000 a year people. So I'm going to watch and I'm going to see how are they doing. What's going on with them. And so when I see all these layoffs, but not only layoffs, a real key thing for me is how are they doing their building projects. In other words, a few years ago in Las Colinas, there was a big story about how 4 or 5 new building projects had been put on hold. And I went, wow, that's
Are you talking about commercial projects?
commercial projects.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had planned on them. They're ready to go, put them on hold because of the economy. So I'm going to look at a lot of different, several different factors that I understand that I can relate to. And I'm going to ask myself, how is that affecting the people that would normally be my clients? And if it's not good, then I'm going to prepare myself for somewhere down the line. Usually it filters down over a period of months, sometimes over a year. But you'll see it filter down to where it gets to a point to where all the projects that we were in the middle of get finished, and are people calling you to do more projects. That's the tell. And when they quit doing that, then you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how do you think the layoffs, the furloughs, whatever they want to call it for American Airlines, that let's say it is the 20,000, how do you think that's going to affect the overall economy in the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas area, or will it?
I don't know that if that one thing would affect it. I really am not that, my acumen in business isn't that laser focused, but obviously that's 20,000 people, or that number of people that aren't going to be able to do things that maybe they had been planning on.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be anything from they got relocated here and they were ready to buy a house. Oops, I can't do that now.
Mm-hmm.
Or I bought the house and I want to remodel the kitchen. Typical project for me. Whoops, I can't do that. I'm going to have to live with it the way it is until I either get another job or this changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so but that's just that one company. That's American Airlines. But Uber's moving here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the whole list, but a whole list of big major corporations are relocating. They're pulling out of California and New York like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that picks up some of the slack. Uber was planning on doing a big project downtown, and they put it on hold, or at least they put part of it on hold. And so it's volatile, and it's an election year,
Mm-hmm.
right? What side of the fence are you on the election, and who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the people that say it's doom and gloom? Or are you going to believe the people that say, hey, ride it out, it's going to get better?
Mm-hmm.
Vote us in, or you're going to be living in the streets. And that affects everybody's attitude. At the end of the day, it makes you, that one purchase you're going to make, maybe I need to wait till I see what's going to happen down the road.
Yeah. Have you been paying attention to Amazon and what they're doing? What I guess where Valley View Mall used to be. I saw a headline. I didn't read the story about they were going to be adding on more than what they originally planned, which meant they
I
would
didn't
be.
know. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that sounds good.
Yeah. I'd hate to be the one that lives close by because it's going to be a lot of extra traffic. But that's a lot of extra jobs too that for the area.
Well, and there's just this renaissance happening in North Texas right now. It is a truly amazing thing to watch. We're evolving. We're replacing a lot of old malls and car dealerships, all these places have been just sitting there. All of a sudden, they're valuable property. They're in a square inch of dirt not being turned in this town right now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so those projects last a while, right? And you hope as the contractor that your projects outlast the slowdown in the economy, and you get to the other side of it, you're still working, you still have money coming in, you get to the other side of it, and someone's calling you to move to a new project. So that's the game, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a small remodeler and you're just doing projects that take a few weeks, maybe a couple months, whatever, you may not feel really good about some of the things that you're hearing because your phone may not be ringing. Now I'm doing a project with a friend of mine. I'm doing a video series, and he's a home builder, and he builds 10 or 12 houses a year. He's got a really nice little business going, and he's started having people a couple of months ago cancel or delay projects that they were going to start around the first of the year, because they were getting real nervous about the economy. And I asked him the other day, has that changed? And he said no. And so I'm not really looking forward to the first of the year, and he's not either, because he's having to really look at his business model and what does he do to compensate for that loss of business. Yeah. And so this is what small guys like him and I are faced with right now.
Does he actively advertise and market his business, or is it mostly word of mouth?
No, he markets. Yeah.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah, he does.
Have you had the opportunity to observe what other home improvement type companies, I know you work with a closet company, but any other businesses outside of the traditional remodeling like what you're doing, on what they're doing to market their business? And the reason I ask that, I've noticed 2, 3, maybe 4 companies advertise on TV that I've not seen advertised before. And that's a pretty pricey proposition to.
That's a big commitment.
Yes, it is.
Dollar-wise, and it better pay off for you. And you better be prepared for it when you do it, because it will initially, you'll have a huge bump, right? You'll have a huge influx. Yeah. But if you're not ready for it, then it's a disaster.
Yeah.
The trend that I've seen the last really couple of years, and I know it's lasted longer than that, but it's really taken hold the last couple of years, is all of this marketing that they're doing with referral companies online referrals. And I have really had a hard time adjusting that, honestly, because I grew up with personal referrals. And so it's a whole new thing for me. So I have a guy call me a few weeks ago from out of state. His parents live here locally, and they're elderly. They live in a really nice house in a real nice neighborhood. And they need a bunch of work done on the outside of the house. So the guy, I've been getting a lot of referrals off of my Better Business Bureau ad because they're looking for someone with an A+ rating. And so they find me and other people, and they call us. So the guy calls me. He doesn't know anybody around here. He's just kind of randomly calling people. Well, I went into the BB, because the first thing I asked him is, how'd you find my name? Well, I went into the BBB. You have an A+ rating. So I decided that's the kind of person I want, blah, blah, blah. We have a long conversation. What do you want to do? What's your budget? Oh, I don't know my budget. Scope of project, timelines, all that kind of stuff that when you're interviewing somebody, particularly somebody you don't know or that wasn't a direct referral. At the end of the conversation, as I always do, I said, how many quotes are you taking? Well, I'm up to 5 or 6 now. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not going to take any more than 11. And I got, he could kind of sense it in the phone, where I was like, well, it's been really nice meeting you.
Yeah, the long pause of silence before you speak.
And I go, well, what? He goes, why? What's wrong with that? And I go, well, you're wasting 10 people's time. That's what's wrong with it. And it tells me immediately that you're just looking for the cheapest. Oh, no, I'm not looking for the cheapest. Well, sure you are. That's why you're talking to that many people.
Between that and he has a hard time making a decision. He's afraid to make a decision.
Yeah. So it tells me a whole lot also about that I've talked to now 2 or 3 other people with doing the same thing. And this is sort of the difference in not only acquiring new business for the business owner like me, adjusting to how to make that work for you, but also just kind of the overall attitude people have right now, where it still comes down to the Walmart shopper that I always talk about, where they want everything. They want to walk in the front door and get everything under one roof. That's what they want to do.
Right.
And they want to. They don't want to do their own research. They want to go on Angie's List or HomeAdvisor or whatever it is.
There's a new one in the market.
Them to have done that work for them.
Did you know there's a new service in the market now?
No.
I don't remember the name of it. I did an episode, a couple of episodes back about, and I forgot the company that worked all this out, but it's another new one in the market that's doing the same thing as Angie's List, all those guys.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting. Now, basically, at HomeAdvisor, if I understand it right, HomeAdvisor and Lowe's just made a big deal. And I'll tell you, you just have to, as a contractor, a home improvement contractor, you have to pick your lane. You know, first of all, you need to decide what's the biggest job I want to do, what's the smallest job I want, what am I equipped to do, what do I do well, and don't go outside of those boundaries, because you're going to get yourself in trouble if you do. If you're when I was doing I used to just do giant projects. If it was under $500,000 or sometimes even at one point $1 million, I wasn't interested. And I had designed my business model around that. So I had the superintendents, I had the office staff, I had all of that stuff. My marketing, everything was designed around that. My whole business was. And then and then we hit a recession or something. And I said, I need to learn how to do smaller projects. Well, we weren't equipped for that. And we couldn't make money doing smaller projects because we just didn't have the right attitude. We didn't have the right people. We had craftsmen. A lot of these guys that do volume, they call themselves a carpenter. I don't know. That's a real loosely used term these days, but they're nailers.
They're nailers, yeah. They can cut a board. Nailers. They can cut a board. They may not be able to measure, but they can cut the board.
Right.
They can hammer the nail.
Nothing against them, but they're just not trained.
Right.
Right. They're just making a living. That's what they're doing. So I'm not mad at them.
Right.
But it's hard for the guy that comes out of that big custom, real, trade heavy training to adjust to just being kind of a glorified handyman.
Right. Well, let's go back to that. Those guys that were working for you that were craftsmen. I mean, they were more than a carpenter. They that would make a good song, more than a carpenter. Anyway, so those guys that specialize in their work is detailed. Not, whether they're a framing carpenter or a finish carpenter, right. They're really detailed in what they do. What's happened to those guys? Have they been able to continue with that kind of work at the pay?
Well, those guys and me grew up going through a process, like many people. You know, we started out sweeping a floor. We were trusted with running errands. all of that teaches you. You know, it's just like that movie Karate Kid. I love that movie because yeah, left hand, right hand, you know, wax on, wax off, all that stuff. All that was a lesson.
Yeah.
And so when he went through the whole process of wax on, wax off, he never knew it, but all of a sudden he was who he was, you know, whatever, grasshopper, whatever he was.
Grasshopper.
So I went through that process, and my friends did that stayed in the business, and some of us went on to be contractors. Some of us just stayed as tradesmen, and it's all, you know, you end up being who you are. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, what I see is some of them are trained. You know, like if they went to work for maybe a production builder and they had a training part of their business is to train their employees, and they can learn things that you really learn most things in the trades through experience. Mm-hmm. And so there's the expectations are not the same as they used to be. The quality standards are not the same. So nobody's telling these guys, you know, straighten the stud up, or don't use that one, it's got a big crack in it, or the wall's got to be level. I cannot tell you, and because as you know, part of my niche business is elevator shafts. Mm-hmm. So I get to go in houses that are some of them brand new, not even occupied, and put in an elevator. Well, the big problem we always have is that the house is built so poorly. It's out of square, it's out of level, that we're just stunned. We're just like, how can you sell this house for $1 million? It is a piece of junk. But it all comes down to the people running the job and training them. So when you're asking me, are they a skill or what happened to them? No, they're not, but they're not trained to be. Mm-hmm. And we also went from a trade where you started out sweeping the floors and ended up cutting the roof rafters. You know, that's sort of the high point of the trade of, let's say, a framer. Now you start out as you just do one thing. In other words, I could build a house. I learned to build a house from the foundation all the way through the roof. We did everything. We did the concrete work. We did put the walls in. We put the electrical in. We pulled the wires. Excuse me. We put all the way through. We did the insulation. We did the sheetrock. We did everything. We even painted it. And that's how I learned to build houses. So I understood clearly how all the little parts connected, how everything related to everything else. These guys don't do that now. They go in and they're very specific about one portion of something.
It's the Henry Ford.
I don't know.
It's the Henry Ford manufacturing principle. Yeah. Where one guy was assigned to just put tires on the wheel. Another guy was assigned to put the wheels on the car. And that's all they did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's sort of where we're at now.
Yeah. That's why it's called production builder.
We've been there for, and we've been there since the 90s, really. Now it's getting better. We as we all know, as parents, we weren't very good parents. we told all our kids, if you don't get a college degree, you'll be a failure. And we put a lot of pressure on them, and they all went and got, a master's degree in knitting and ended up being failures.
Yeah. And deep in debt.
Now they're all backtracking. And they're going, we need to get them in the trades. Well, yeah, we could have told you that. There's nothing wrong with knowing how to drive a nail. Even if you end up being a surgeon, it's okay to know how to drive a nail. Yeah. It's a good thing. Yeah. It's a fallback. So we have a lot of catching up to do, but there's a big push nationally to get people back in the trades. It's working. They're getting in there. We're supporting the heck out of it. The building community really supports it. We're working with colleges in my show. I support it wholeheartedly and try and encourage it. And so, we'll make the comeback. It'll take a few years. You have to get through the process.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of companies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that are doing this, but Milestone Electric, and the reason I bring them up, I know the people, the owners of Milestone, and I hear about things that they've been doing. They have a training class for electrical and I think for HVAC. So they're basically teaching their new hires how to do that trade. And I don't know if they're charging for that or
They
if
have to, Gary. They have to.
yeah.
The Total Air and Heat, he's having to do the same thing.
Okay.
But all of these mechanical, particularly mechanical companies, and plumbing companies, they're having to do that because they cannot find enough people to fill those positions.
Yeah.
They're just not there.
Yeah. And then they hire from the graduating class.
You have job fairs and things like that. You find out who's interested. Another thing that they're doing that's really interesting to me, the bigger guys are buying the smaller guys up.
Yeah.
They're buying them because they want their trained people.
Yeah.
They want the employees.
Yeah.
It's worth it to them to just buy the company and buy the employees, put them to work.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I know that you've got to take a call here. And is there any last thoughts, anything else you want to add to what we've been talking about?
I want to tell small business owners, particularly in the construction industry, to plan very carefully and plan for a rainy day. Keep your overhead low. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have that big $1,500 wrap on your pickup truck. Yeah. In fact, you don't have to have the big $75,000 4-door, 4-wheel drive truck. You don't need it. Be practical and be safe and save your money, and be wise, because we're going to have a big slowdown. It's coming. We all know it's coming. Mm-hmm. I don't know when. I think after the first of the year, it's probably going to slow down. Mm-hmm. And so get yourself positioned so you can survive it. And that's my advice.
Yeah. And something I would add to that was be ready to pivot your business.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that I learned, and it's just my nature, is I'm very diverse. So I have a construction company, I have a production company, because that's what I love doing, and I have a fly fishing guide service.
There we go.
So
well, speaking of that, if somebody wants to get in touch with you about your construction business or your production business with your podcast or with your fishing guide service, how do they get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Well, they can go to Alex at alexguthrie.net. That gets to me, regardless of what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
Of course, you can always go to remodelrevolutionradio.com, remodelrev.com. We're changing it over as fast as we can. And you can check out our website on that show, which is really a lot of fun. We're having a great time with it, a lot of success with it. If you have needs in the digital marketing world, you can always contact me, because we're doing projects with a couple of other people right now. We're doing marketing projects with them to help them sort of transition into that digital world, which is what I did from radio to digital. And then, of course, the construction business has been a little bit slow.
I'm going to get 11 bids. Ooh.
I might as well do some other stuff, but I think having a diverse, your investor will tell you, have a diverse portfolio, have a diverse business attitude. Be like you say, be ready to pivot. Look at what people around you are doing. That's how I pivoted from the big time guy to the little guy. I knew people doing it, and I said, well, they can do it, I can do it. And I had to sit down and assess my business and change the way I was doing things. But it worked out.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, once again,
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me on today.
I'm glad you're able to come on. I know things have been busy with on the digital side of getting the video production going and all that kind of thing. So I appreciate you taking the time to get on here with me.
Well, thank you very much.
Also, one more time, tell people your how to get in touch with you on all three different things that you're doing.
The production or Remodel Revolution is remodelrev.com. And that is for the Remodel Revolution show. Of course, it's Wednesdays, 10 to 11. It streams on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And then we replay it a lot. You should just go on Facebook and friend us at Remodel Revolution show. And it'll pop up there. My happy smiling face will be there Wednesday at 10 o'clock, right on your phone.
Yes, sir. And you've had some great guests on there too.
Yeah,
and you've provided some great content.
Yeah. And we have some coming up. Thank you. And construction, Alex at alexguthrie.net, and my website is alexguthrieconstruction.net. I think that's right. And then, of course, the guide service, well, we're just getting that going. It's flyfishfork.com, but it's not live yet, but we're just kind of getting it going. But I'm licensed. I have my guide license, and I'm ready to go. So if anybody wants to go fly fishing on Lake Fork, contact me from one of the other websites or at 469-446-8508, and we'll set up a date. We'll go fishing.
Very cool, man. You got those plates spinning in the air. That's only 3 plates. That's okay.
Yeah, but I've only got 2 hands. Thanks, okay. Gary. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Fun.
We'll talk with you later.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. I trust you enjoyed our conversation. As I said earlier, I always enjoy his point of view along with what he has to say about current events. Call Alex for your next remodeling project or your next new home build. Go to his website, alexguthrie.net, and contact him. Also, listen to his podcast at remodelrevolutionradio.com. Watch his show, Remodel Revolution, live on Facebook on Wednesday mornings. So what's coming up next on the Home Improvement Report? I'm constantly searching for new information in the home improvement industry that consumers and contractors alike will enjoy. I bet you probably know someone that would be a great guest for the Home Improvement Report, right? Maybe it's you. Let me know a little bit about their story or your story. I'm always looking for great stories of business successes. You know, the story behind the story. Check us out on our website, thehomeimprovementreport.com. And of course, you can also go find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Subscribe to the podcast and listen to the previous episodes of the Home Improvement Report. Contact me if you have any question regarding today's podcast. I'm Gary Neidert, and you've just experienced the Home Improvement Report podcast. Call me, 972-771-7899. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening.